Welcome in TNCRadio.LIVE. This is Clutch Time Sports. I'm Tom Kelly along with Josh Banker.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Want to send a special shout out to the Andersons. Ivan Anderson out this week. As you may or may not have heard last Wednesday, his father unfortunately passed away, and he and his family are coming back from the great state of Michigan tonight. So we send our thoughts, prayers, condolences, all the above to the Anderson family. I texted with him a little bit today, and thank you, Tom, for stepping in for him today. They're hanging in. They're doing okay. So, as good as it could possibly go, obviously, in a time like this. So, much love to the Anderson family. He'll be back with us next week. So, take some time, as much time as you need with the fam there, and enjoy yourself and come back next week all rested and kind of mentally refreshed. That kind of stuff is, even if you prepare for it, you still can never prepare enough for it.
Well,
so,
the Queen died since we were last on.
That's true.
96 years old, and everybody agrees that no one's surprised, but everyone's still shocked. And with Ivan, it was both a surprise and a shock.
Right. Right.
So, but there are those sometimes where you go, well, she is 96 years old. How surprised can you be? But it's still a shock when you lose somebody who you think a lot of. So what about you, Josh? You have both your parents still?
I do. Yeah. Thankfully, I'm kind of on the younger side. So I'm 46, and I was born 3 weeks before my mom's 19th birthday. So I still have relatively young parents. Both of them are under 70 still. So, knock on wood, of course, as I'm talking about it. But yeah, both are in very good health. And in fact, I'm going to be seeing my dad on Sunday. Going to hang out with him for a couple days and, hang out with them and just have a good time. So, but we could talk about all this stuff, for an hour, but that's can be kind of depressing, and I'm sure Ivan would not want us to talk about it for an hour either. Exactly. But to pay homage to him, let's start off talking about the NFL Week 1, Tom. The craziest game of the day, Sunday, had to be that Steelers-Bengals game.
Oh my gosh.
Ivan's Steelers. If there's any doubt about an emphasis on what a long snapper or a kicking game brings to a team, go watch the fourth quarter and overtime of that Steelers-Bengals game.
Wow. Yeah. Can you say doink?
Several times, yeah. Whether it was off a goalpost or off a defender's hands, I could say doink a few different times. Boy, that game was crazy. Pittsburgh ended up winning in overtime. Mitchell Trubisky, his first start as a Steeler. If you would have told me that Cleveland, Pittsburgh both win road games to start their season and sit atop of the AFC North, I would have been calling you crazy.
Yeah. No, there are a lot of. There are a lot of surprises as we were talking about, and everybody's encouraged to join us on Pigskin Pick'em on TNC Radio, Pigskin Pick'em, ESPN.com. Find the Pigskin Pick'em. Come and join us. We'd love to have you as part of it. We got half a dozen of us in there so far, and I felt good about my lineup going into the game. I went 4-12 against the spread.
It's crazy. Wow. We talked about this off the air last year, how accurate these guys are that make these spreads, these over-unders. It's ridiculous, and how hard it is to try to even gauge or guess any of these. I mean, you were talking about who is it that went 9 for 9 in the early set of games?
Larry Baum, 9 for 9 in the early games on Sunday. 9 for 9.
Larry Baum, who, of course, precedes us here at TNCRadio.LIve. But
I mean, he kicked butt. I mean, it was awesome. But yes, against the spread makes it harder, but it also makes it in my opinion, more interesting. Otherwise, why not just take the favorite in every game?
Very true.
So
and if you would have done that in just about every game this week, you would have been dying.
Yeah.
I mean, really dying. I mean, as a 49er fan, of course, I was humbled this weekend. The Bears, it was interesting. The Niners dominated the first half of that game and still were only up 10-0 at one point. And then they couldn't do anything in the second half of the game, and that's really when the rain started too. But that's when the Bears decided to come out of their hibernation and totally run down San Francisco.
Yeah, and looked really strong doing it. Another team I've got to give props to, talk about being humbled. I've had nothing nice to say about the Houston Texans for years.
Yeah.
And what I saw during that game for at least a little while was a team. I haven't seen a Houston team in a long time, because these guys have not, it's just been scattered and just, uncomfortable and cringeworthy. And, last year, the whole thing was just kind of what are we even doing here? And they look organized and well. Lovie Smith, God love him, man. He's brought some discipline and forward thinking, and it was really entertaining football that we have not seen here in a very long time.
Well, and they're starting to get some talent on that team too. Yeah. If they could kind of piggyback that all and put that all together, it's a winnable division. And speaking of that, how about the New York Football Giants?
Yeah,
going on the road to Tennessee, not only winning that game, but winning it by going for two, being down 20-19 in the final minute of the fourth quarter, when they could have just easily kicked a potential, point after to tie it and potentially go to overtime. But they go for two and get it, and then hold off a long field goal there at the end by Tennessee to get a road win. And with what Dallas is going to be going through over these next few weeks with Dak Prescott getting hurt, who knows what the Giants could end up doing.
So what's the latest you're hearing there? I saw a clip earlier today. I didn't get a chance to watch it myself, that maybe the injury isn't as bad as originally thought.
Yeah, he had surgery already on Monday.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Yeah, and so they said that there's a potential that he comes back way quicker than they expected. Same goes for T.J. Watt, who's been a AFC defensive stalwart for the Steelers. They thought his season was over with a torn pectoral. Ouch, by the way. But now he's getting a second opinion, and it sounds like it may not be as bad as they thought for him either. So, Dallas pretty much stunk up the joint even with Prescott on Sunday night. But I don't know that I have much faith in anybody else at quarterback. There's been a lot of Jimmy G rumors, by the way, over the last 36 hours or so.
I'm not surprised. Yeah. Why not?
Anybody at this point, Jerry Jones is not going to want to sit back and potentially go 0-4. By the way, it's kind of interesting if things kind of play out like I kind of almost predicted in our NFL preview. I thought the Cowboys were going to struggle regardless to start this year and potentially replace Mike McCarthy with Sean Payton. So let's see. Let's see how this plays out.
You have that on your predictions list.
I did.
This Sunday, speaking of predictions, Dallas Cowboys at home getting 7.5 points against the Bengals. What do you think? Is that a good line there?
Right now, I'm still taking the Bengals with the points. I feel like they're a bit more motivated after losing at home in kind of embarrassing fashion to Pittsburgh. Okay. And while they may or may not have T. Higgins, who got a concussion on Sunday, I just feel like they're in a spot where it's almost, I don't want to say it's a must win, but when Dallas is down their big quarterback, you got to take advantage as much as you can.
Let's talk about your 49ers for a second. Okay, we got 49ers at home giving up 8.5 against a Seattle team that we expected absolutely nothing. And I don't know that we saw that much, but giving up 8.5, that seems like an awful lot. Are you good with that, or is that kind of
I am for now, and that's assuming that George Kittle comes back and plays. I think that'll be a huge dynamic for Trey Lance, and of course, as long as Noah isn't building his ark outside of Levi Stadium that day, that would be another nice help. But I have a feeling that this is obviously overreaction Wednesday, so to speak, both negatively and positively.
Right.
I don't think Seattle's as good as they were on Monday night. I think they were hyped up with Russell Wilson being there. I thought Denver's defense was terrible. They made Geno Smith look like, a Super Bowl winning quarterback. And I don't think the Niners were as bad as they are as a team the way they played in Chicago. I think they'll be much more motivated to beat a division rival like Seattle.
Well, talk about overreaction. The Bears giving up. No, I'm sorry. The Bears. I'm still struggling with this one, so I'm going to try this one more time. Green Bay at home. Green Bay at home giving up 9.5 to the Bears.
Boy, the way that Green Bay's offense looked in Minnesota on Sunday, that's a tough one.
I don't see how they can do. I mean, I'll take the Bears and the points. Thanks.
I'm kind of leaning the same way. I just don't know that Green Bay's offense is in sync yet. I don't think the way Aaron Rodgers was reacting on the sidelines to the way his receivers were not producing at all makes me believe that there's just not enough ways you could get Aaron Jones or A.J. Dillon the ball out of the backfield and try to push things down the field outside of their wide receivers. So I don't know how. I mean, if Chicago's offense shows up, I think they could very well cover that spread.
All right, we've got just a minute or two still talking NFL before we get into college football in segment 2. I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games that the spread is more than a touchdown, and a 7th that is a touchdown. Wow, for week 2, that many. I mean, these are big spreads. Atlanta, they suck. We all know they suck. We all knew they were going to suck going into the season, right? But 10.5 points going into the Rams. Okay, that seems like a lot to me, especially since the Rams didn't look particularly special last weekend. Any of these that kind of jump out at you that are just like, oh, they're way off? Buffalo giving up 9.5 against the Titans. Again, that's a lot of points against the Titans.
I agree, and that's kind of one that I think too is in that category of what are they thinking? Because Tennessee, if I have not forgotten incorrectly, beat Buffalo last year on the road in Buffalo.
Okay.
Now, again, this is like we talked about, overreaction week. They lose at home to the Giants. Excuse me, do the Titans and the Bills look like they're automatic Super Bowl winners by the way they played the Rams in LA. So, is that an overreaction? I think it probably is. Yeah. I just don't see how the Titans try not to slow that game down enough to where they can cover a ridiculous spread like that.
Yeah, and look, I still don't think the Texans are going to win the game, but I'll definitely take the Texans and 9.5 points against a Denver team that was just a downright embarrassment on Monday Night Football.
Yeah, let's kick a 64-yarder on the road to try to win that. That made no sense at all.
Yeah, that was just the whole. And see, this is where I'm looking at two teams. One team that's getting its act together and really playing like a team for the first time in years, and another team that didn't look like a team. They just looked a bit lost, not quite sure what they wanted out of each other. Everybody was kind of just a little bit off kilter, and It takes a lot to fix that in 6 days.
And again, 1 week does not a season make, because yes, while Houston looked great, they may look like the Houston of the last 4 or 5 years next week.
Sure, they might.
They might.
But right now, I'll take nearly 10 points on that. Sure.
Yeah.
Prove me wrong. and show me the old Texans. And but they looked great in the preseason too. So, hey, we're going to take a break here, and when we come back, talk a little college football right here on TNCRadio.LIVE. Clutch Time Sports. Stay right there.
Building Strong Minds with Dr. Christopher Cortman every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. As a professional driver, you are always being told about the importance of physical fitness, your health. But what about mental fitness? On the show each week, we take on a new topic, from loneliness to the power of gratitude to how to build strong relationships, all from the perspective of a driver's life. It's every Monday on TNC Radio Live at 7 p.m. Eastern. It's Building Strong Minds.
This blog on TNCRadio.LIVE is brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net. 5 best scenic drives for truck drivers. One of the many benefits of being a truck driver is traveling the beautiful United States. Truck drivers spend their life on the road. Although they may get tired of driving, there's still routes and attractions most look forward to seeing. Whether it be cruising down the coast of California, driving in the Smoky Mountains, or passing through the Arizona desert, truck drivers all have their personal favorites. Here are the 5 most beautiful scenic drives rated by truck drivers. Pacific Coast Highway. The Pacific Coast in California, also called Highway 1, is one of the most iconic scenic drives in the United States. Driving along the Pacific Coast reminds you of a movie or TV show. It's about 650 miles long and runs from Capistrano Beach in Orange County to Leggett in northern Mendocino. San Juan Skyway. San Juan Skyway, a scenic byway in Colorado, is known for its million-dollar views. The byway goes across the San Juan National Forest and has provided truckers with beautiful views of the mountains and landscape. Beartooth Highway. Beartooth Highway in Montana is a 68-mile byway that runs through southwest Montana and northwest Wyoming and goes into Yellowstone National Park. Along this drive, you'll see one of the most diverse ecosystems accessible by vehicle in the United States. Keep in mind that the scenic highway closes in the winter due to adverse winter conditions and typically opens up on Memorial Day weekend. I-64 in West Virginia. West Virginia has some of the most beautiful landscapes on the East Coast. Driving down I-64 in West Virginia feels like you're in a painting. If you have time to stop along your truck route, check out Tamarack, located just off I-64 in Beckley, West Virginia. Tamarack is a unique culture center with art from local artisans and delicious food. If you want the full Appalachian experience, check out Tamarack. Utah's Route 12. Utah's Route 12 is one of the most scenic routes in the United States. It's often called the All-American Road. Also, there are 2 national parks at each end of the road, Bryce Canyon and Capitol Reef, and many other unique scenic views. This info blog was brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net. Do you have the TNCRadio.LIVE app? It's free and easy to download. Just go to app.tncradio.live, Google Play, or the App Store. Get access to live streaming radio developed by drivers for drivers. Download the TNCRadio.LIVE app today.
Now, the rest of the story. College football, Saturday, September 24, 2005. Notre Dame was poised to clash with the University of Washington in Seattle. It was nationally televised. You may have seen it. Anyway, Notre Dame took the opening kickoff. The player who caught the ball fumbled it. Notre Dame recovered, but on their own 1-yard line. Now, you're backed up against your own goal line. You keep it on the ground. You've got to. Unless there's some late-in-the-game desperation, you rush. Give your quarterback some elbow room. But Notre Dame's coach Weiss says no. Sends in another play, an impossible play, it would seem. Pass. Pass right. And his entire team knows why. It was a promise. Coach Weiss had promised someone ahead of time that he could call the first play of the game, call whatever he wanted, and he had called pass right. Now, college football enthusiasts already know where I'm going with this, so bear with me for the sake of those who have not heard. That Notre Dame coach, Charlie Weiss, had recently befriended a small boy, a 10-year-old boy, who was very sick, brain cancer. Youngster's name was Montana Mazurkowitz. He's actually named for Notre Dame star quarterback Joe Montana. Anyway, this little boy had been a huge Notre Dame fan all his young life, and now he needed some encouragement. So Charlie Weiss befriended him. In fact, Charlie had just been to his house earlier in the week, had brought him a football, and told him a little about Joe Montana, who had been Charlie Weiss's roommate in college. And then Charlie asked the youngster, how would you like to call the first play of Saturday's game? Well, the little boy said, sure. And then he said, pass right. So now you see what's happened here. Nobody could have predicted that Notre Dame's first possession would be on their own 1-yard line, the last place from which you want to pass. But here they were. Michigan State had just beaten Notre Dame the week previous, so they needed a good start here. But Coach Weiss says, no. We're not playing it safe. We're running Montana's play. So out they go. Quarterback Brady Quinn, standing there in his own end zone, takes the snap, looks right, sees tight end Anthony Fasano open, just barely open. So Quinn throws to him, and Fasano, this big tight end, catches it, turns to run. He has to leap over a defender, which no one has ever seen this big guy do, but he makes it for a gain of 13 yards. And yes, the Irish went on to beat U of W 36-17, a victory that stood on the shoulders of a little boy and his impossible play. But see, it was not about looking big to a sick kid. It was about keeping a promise. Because little Montana, he had died the previous day in the home Charlie Weiss had visited. Would surely never have held the coach to that risky, awkward opening pass. But it worked. And even still, Anthony Fasano wonders how he managed to hurdle that defender without help from somewhere. But maybe we know, because we know the rest of the story.
Rudy. Every time I hear that theme song, I still think of that movie, and that's and Rudy. And by the way, awesome story. I had heard that before, and it's awesome that Charlie Weiss was able to keep that promise and win the game. Unfortunately, the sad news of that youngster passing away. But as we kick off our talk about college football here, Tom, speaking of Notre Dame, there were a lot of interesting games last week, and Notre Dame falling at home to go 0-2 down to Marshall 26-21.
Yeah, but there's something about Marshall winning that even after all these years, I still always enjoy Marshall beating the big guy. I just and I guess I always will.
Seeing Byron Leftwich being carried down the field, just it embarks those memories in my brain whenever I hear about Marshall.
Well, and they're my dad's favorite team. My dad, who's passed away, his favorite team was whoever was playing Notre Dame. I don't know what it was he hated about Notre Dame, but he had a special negative place in his heart for Notre Dame, so he was always happy when they lost.
It's a crazy week for college football. It's kind of the same way for me, by the way. Whoever's playing Alabama, they're my favorite team. It's out of respect for Alabama. It's like, anybody that plays the Yankees is my favorite team outside of the Giants. But it just would be nice to see somebody else step up and be better than Alabama like Georgia was last year. But man, how about Texas taking Alabama to the limit in Austin, losing 20-19 and really having a stranglehold on that game until the very end. And then Bryce Young and Alabama just became Alabama again.
Yeah. But
they were one of those teams
minute.
that you just wonder, can they flip a switch at any time? Apparently they can.
Well, but they waited to the very last minute to flip that little switch.
Glad we didn't have them in the pigskin pick'em. That would have been a nightmare.
I don't think most people would have gotten that one right. And the other one, also involving a Texas team, Texas A&M against my wife's alma mater, Appalachian State. Now, who saw that one coming?
The Mountaineers.
Yeah.
Is it just me, or whether they're 1AA or now that they're up to the full FCS? Appalachian State over the last 15, 20 years just always kind of sticks their nose out there and kind of reminds people, hey, don't forget about us.
You got to understand, this is a little school. They're in Boone, North Carolina. And Boone, North Carolina is as big as you think it is when I say Boone, North Carolina. It's about two and a half hours, maybe a little bit more north of Charlotte. There's nothing there except the college. It looks like a picture postcard. Beautiful place when it snows and all that kind of. But it's not exactly what you would, it's not a college town like you would think Columbia, Missouri, or College Station, Texas, or not. It's a little town.
Yeah.
With a little college. And
yeah.
Boy, they know how to play football. Don't believe me? Ask Michigan.
Thank you for saying that when Ivan was not here, by the way. I'm sure he would appreciate not being in this conversation at the moment.
Yeah.
The one game I really want to talk about, which did not involve a ranked team, is Nebraska. And you and I were kind of talking off air about this, but we both can remember back in the days when Nebraska was a perennial powerhouse, and now Scott Frost has lost his job already after he was doing so well in Florida before coming to Nebraska. It kind of amazes me, Tom, the fact that you have a high, well-known college football franchise like Nebraska, who used to be, like I said, perennial bowl championship caliber teams.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And you get a guy that's an ex-player of your team, of your football team, and you bring him in, and yet they haven't been relevant, I don't think it feels like, for 15, 20 years now.
No.
And yet least. Frost, for whatever reason, I don't know if it was the pressure or whatever, but they just cannot get it together. And he didn't have a huge leash. And honestly, I don't know how you can anymore in today's college football.
What do you mean?
Well, it didn't feel like he had a long time there to really put it all together.
Yeah.
I think because the expectations were high based off of what he'd done in Florida before coming to Nebraska, they expected him to right that 15 to 20 year deficit, from their relevancy quicker than he did. But, you lose like they did on Saturday, and I guess I can't blame Nebraska for what they did.
Well, it was still a bold move. Have they named a replacement, a permanent?
No.
Yeah.
I think they're just going with an interim coach for now. That was already on staff. So I just, it's crazy. I mean, you've got, they moved to the Big Ten, then the Big 12 now, but they just haven't found an identity in a long time, and it's actually kind of sad because you get waves of teams, and we talked about Texas earlier. They've had their ups and downs over the last same amount of time, 15, 20 years, but it's never been the sustained losing that Nebraska has had over these past number of years, to where you stop thinking of Texas as being a relevant school for football, where Nebraska has just absolutely fallen off the face of the earth.
I don't think of it. If you said name the top 25 football programs in America, I don't think Nebraska makes that list anymore.
No.
Which before, wasn't all that long ago when they would have to be in consideration of the top 10. Now I don't even think they make the top 25. They may be substantially lower than that even, as far as just overall program, and I'm talking about the whole thing, not just their ability to win games, but producing great players and all that. They're just not there anymore. They're not
right, and they lose to a Sun Belt team, Georgia Southern, who does anybody know who the Georgia Southern mascot even is?
Right. Yeah, I was impressed. You knew Appalachian State were the Mountaineers. I have no idea who Georgia Southern mascot is.
Oh, they're the Eagles, but still, okay.
There you go.
It doesn't really even matter who or what the mascot was of whoever beat Nebraska is. If they're not competitive in their conference, that's one thing. But if they're losing at home to a Sun Belt team, that can't happen.
This is the game that's supposed to be, and I don't mean it because no game is easy, but it's supposed to be the one that, all right, we know we're going to win that one. And
right.
Even if we did, struggle a little bit the first week or two, that's okay because we're going to, we'll be good.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why even Alabama still plays, Norfolk State or something like that every year. I mean, they got to get, almost a glorified practice in before they go play an SEC team. And that's I'm sure what Georgia Southern was supposed to be for somebody like Nebraska. And now, because they can't even win that game, Scott Frost, bye-bye.
Yeah, a lot of teams play that first or second week is against, a little school that you don't think much of. And, of course, sometimes that means you drop your guard like Michigan did against Appalachian State, 10 years ago or so. Which, if you type in biggest college upset, now that Stephen F. Austin beat Duke a couple of years ago, that was in basketball.
That was Virginia. They beat Virginia. That was 16-1. Is that what you're talking about?
Oh, no, I'm talking about just regular season games. Stephen F. Austin beat Duke
got it.
Regular season a few years back, which it was one of those clearly looking beyond and not really getting ready for the game they should have been playing. I mean, Stephen F. Austin's even smaller than Appalachian State, I think, and they're just a little school a couple hours north of Houston that, you get, I guess, the smaller school, they get a lot of money playing a big team like that, so that's their reason for doing it.
For sure.
And the big school, they it's like you said, it's a glorified practice, and
that's kind of what Michigan has done for the first 2 weeks of their season this year, because they don't even know who their starting quarterback is. So they played one guy the first week, they played another guy the second week, and they were both subpar teams that they played against. So do you really have a good gauge as to who your starting quarterback is going to be once it really matters? And it's interesting to see how big teams and big college programs take on these so-called, cupcake games.
Right.
Because if they don't turn into cupcakes like Nebraska, you're gone.
That's right. Hey, we are way past time for a break, and when we're coming back, we're going to be talking Trey Rangs right here on TNCRadio.LIVE. So stay right there. TNCRadio.LIVE, your commercial driver navigation station.
Hi, I'm Dr. Christopher Cortman, and now for the Mental Health Minute. I want to share a little secret with you about what keeps humans going well into their 80s and 90s. Are you ready for this? It's the perception, it's the belief that I still matter, I still have things to do, I'm still necessary. That's number one. And number two, that I'm connected to other people. Feeling necessary and connected is important in all stages of human development. But when we become seniors, it becomes even more important because seniors in our society very often feel put out to pasture, like nobody needs me anymore. And people, according to the research, are more likely to die when they don't feel like they're necessary or connected. Here's my advice. Always find something important for you to do where you feel like you're necessary, you're needed, you're making a difference. And don't ever neglect the people in your life, the friends and the family that make life worth living.
Hey, rideshare drivers and gig economy workers, the host of TNCRadio.LIVE, the Rideshare Rodeo Podcast, and the Gig Economy Podcast come together for news, talk, music, stories, laughs, and more. We're live Fridays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, right here on TNCRadio.LIVE. Welcome back in TNCRadio.LIVE, Clutch Time Sports. I'm Tom Kelly, filling in for Ivan Anderson tonight, and here's Josh Banker.
Yeah, again, much love to Ivan and his family after the passing of his dad last week, and I know he's heading back home today, probably in the air as we speak, so hopefully things have calmed down and lots of family time over this last week for him. But that brings us to a great segue because, as you know, during our third segment, Tom, we like to try to laugh or smile, at least bring out the bright side of sports, because for the past 4 years, we done won Trey Ranks. All right, rank number one. Week one of the NFL has had its fair share of interesting nuggets, but we all know linemen who want to be quarterbacks or maybe defensive backs that basically are wide receivers, but they can't catch. But what about safeties that want to kick? Well, Sunday afternoon, Kansas City kicker Harrison Butker rolled his ankle early against the Arizona Cardinals, but the Chiefs had a plan, and his name was safety and backup kicker Justin Reed. No need for stinking punters here to do that kind of kicking. So in training camp, Reed had kicked a 65-yard field goal, so they knew he had a big leg. So what did he do? He started doing the kickoffs. And then Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs offense would not stop scoring. So Reed's early dream as a child was to be a kicker, and said that soccer was actually his first sport until he decided to become a kicker. So they brought him in and they actually had him kick an extra point, which he nailed. And one of his kickoffs actually went through the uprights. I mean, we've had Shohei Ohtani hit and pitch, so why not a safety that's a kicker as well, right?
Absolutely.
Did you get to see any of those highlights, Tom?
I saw the highlights.
That guy was bombing it. And it's funny because right before we went on air, there was a story that came out that Butker is out for tomorrow night's game against the Chargers. Boy, I almost said San Diego. I would have had to owe $1 in the jar, I think, if I did that.
That's right.
But the Chargers are in Kansas City tomorrow night. They signed another kicker for this week, but that would have been interesting to see if they would have trusted a safety to really be a backup kicker for more than just a blowout.
What does he need to do to prove that he should be the guy?
Great question. Maybe doing it in a game where the Chiefs aren't up like 35 points, I guess, maybe. Almost kind of the equivalent of like a baseball field player coming in to pitch, late in a game. That's kind of how it ended up being, but Reed was more than capable of doing that job.
Well, I would have been okay with it. It would have been a great story.
All right. Well, rank number two, lost in the chaos of the NFL's opening weekend, was perhaps the global introduction of the next era of tennis stars. And it starts with the new winner of the quote-unquote men's U.S. Open. And I'm doing men's in air quotes because 19-year-old Carlos Alcaraz defeated Casper Ruud in 4-set Sunday to take his first Grand Slam title at the U.S. Open in New York. Tom, I don't know if you saw this, but Alcaraz, who was rated third in the tournament, will become the first teenager to reach world number one in the rankings since they began rankings back in 1973. So you think Nadal, Federer, and Djokovic has been at this a long time. Well, hold on to your hats, because with Alcaraz being just 19 years old, he might be here just as long. Now, Alcaraz had won 3 straight 5-set matches just to reach the final, and in fact, 2 of those matches ended past 2 a.m. local time. So I guess it takes a young man, 19-year-old legs, to get yourself to a final and then win, having matches that long into the night. Congrats, Carlos Alcaraz. Did you get to see any of his matches or any of the highlights? That guy is ridiculously good.
What was the sport?
Tennis.
I gotta admit, I missed that one.
They use this little neon colored ball, goes over it. It's actually it was pretty entertaining. He really got the crowd hyped, and some balls behind his back, between his legs. I mean, it's exciting. You'll probably be hearing a lot more of his name soon enough, that's for sure. All right, rank number 3. Finally, all's well that ends well. You may have seen a viral video going around this week, but 10-year-old Avery Hilliard is smiling again. Now, Avery was attending a Washington Nationals baseball game when right fielder Joey Meneses threw a ball her way after warming up for an inning. Now, she had her glove on and everything when, out of nowhere, an adult fan snatched it with his own glove right before it got to her. That fan walked away like it was no big deal. Hardy har. Well, the Nationals, who I'm sure are just kind of happy to have any fans there at all these days, saw the Twitter post Avery's mom made of of what had happened, of the incident. She was taking video and saw that Meneses was throwing it her way, took a video, and thankfully the Nationals reached out to her immediately after seeing this video to try to make things up for her. In fact, Meneses, who threw the ball, went so far as to pen a handwritten note to her saying, quote, "I'm sorry you didn't get the ball I threw to you. I wanted to make sure you got one, so I hope the signed game ball makes up for it. Hope to see you at a game soon. Your friend, Joey."
Wow.
Always good to have
cool
friends,
yeah.
Right?
Very cool.
So that, ladies and gentlemen, is Trey Ranks, which leads us into some baseball talk, which it feels like it's been forever since we've talked about on here, Tom.
Yeah.
We've been so engrossed in the NFL and college football starting. But I tell you, middle of September to the end of October, easily my favorite sports time of year.
Oh, really? Because we got everything going all at once.
Pretty much. I mean, the only thing we don't have yet are hockey and basketball, but those really do start up very, very soon. And right now, you've got so many good pennant races going on. And if it's not necessarily like, the Dodgers and, leading the Padres by 78 games in the NL West, I mean, you've got really good races in the AL East. The Yankees have actually lost a bunch of ground to Tampa, Toronto, the NL East this week, which we'll talk about in our next segment.
Yeah. Aaron Judge has not hit a home run today, and neither has Pujols. But to me, that's the story of baseball.
That would be awesome.
Pujols hit the 700th home run, where at the beginning of the season, that really wasn't a consideration. At best, somebody would say, well, yeah, I guess he's got a outside chance. Well, now he actually could do it, but he needs to get on the stick here. But I mean, that's a story worth watching. I don't know. Did you see on Sunday night, Monday morning, the announcement that the Dodgers had clinched a playoff berth, only to have the story retracted when they did a little math and realized, well, technically, not yet.
Not yet, but then the very next day, they did.
Yeah. But it was funny that they had already poured the champagne, already had the toast, the whole bit, and then find out that, wait a minute, not quite. I thought David Roberts handled that well. I think he's a classy guy. Basically said, look, we already drank the champagne. we're good. We're going to keep moving forward regardless. And yeah, we all knew they were going to win at least one more game. So we're.
Well, and I'd be remiss because I'm sure my brother-in-law is probably listening tonight to remind him that the Giants took 2 out of 3 from the Braves this week. Well, we'll talk more baseball here in just a moment, but you're listening to Clutch Time Sports right here on TNCRadio.LIVE. We'll be back in just a moment.
This is TNCRadio.LIVE.
This blog is brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net. Truckers Against Trafficking can help fight modern-day slavery. Human trafficking is a real and frightening issue in the United States. It's a crime that forcefully exploits women, men, and children. Human trafficking involves transporting a person into a situation of exploitation, which can include forced labor, marriage, or prostitution. The term exploitation in this sense is commonly referred to as modern slavery. At this time, it's estimated that there are 20 to 40 million human trafficking victims internationally. According to the ACLU, the United States Department of State estimates that 14 to 17,000 people are trafficked into the United States each year. Truckers Against Trafficking exists to educate, equip, empower, and mobilize members of the trucking, bus, and energy industries to combat human trafficking. Truckers Against Trafficking goals: saturate trucking and related industries with TAT materials. Partner with law enforcement and government agencies to facilitate the investigation of human trafficking. Marshal the resources of partners to combat this crime. The Truckers Network proudly sponsors Truckers Against Trafficking and their efforts to fight against this heinous crime that's affecting hundreds of thousands of Americans each year. How truckers can help. Training video. Watch Truckers Against Trafficking's free training video and take the short quiz through their online portal. This will register you as an official TAT-trained, TAT-certified driver. Know the red flags. Download the Truckers Against Trafficking app and request a wallet card and window decal at tat.truckers@gmail.com. Share Truckers Against Trafficking's training with others in person and through social media. How trucking companies, schools can help. Training video. Share Truckers Against Trafficking's free training video with your drivers. Request a digital file of your video or physical DVD from tat.truckers@gmail.com. Know the red flags. Tell your drivers to download the Truckers Against Trafficking app and or request wallet cards for your drivers from tat.truckers@gmail.com. Register your company as trained to reflect your impact in the fight against trafficking and encourage others to do the same. This info blog was brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net.
You're listening to TNCRadio.LIVE. Remember to tune into the Truckers Network radio show with Shelley Johnson, weekdays at 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern.
Welcome back in. Final segment, Clutch Time Sports, TNCRadio.LIVE.
Hi again, everyone. Josh Banker back along with Tom Kelly, who's filling in tonight for Ivan Anderson. We left last segment talking about baseball because it's been a topic of conversation that we just haven't really hit much on over the last month or so with the NFL and college football starting up. And let's be honest, we're kind of tired about talking about live golf too. So let's actually talk about some baseball.
Yeah.
But Tom, it's some pretty interesting changes. I know you're just about as big a baseball guy as I am. Some pretty interesting rule changes. I don't know if a lot of this is going to be for show or if it's actually going to help the game of baseball or not. Bigger bases, a pitch clock. It's just kind of interesting to see. And I think the one that's really the most intriguing to me is this shift rule that basically is going to say you can't have more than 2 players on each side of second base. They've got to actually be touching the infield. Yeah. You can't have a third baseman going on the other side of second base, all that kind of stuff. It's really interesting to me.
I hate it.
I hate it too.
Well, we can get into my whole theory about the worst commissioner in the history of baseball, but even Dr. Fauci had to say
that things will get worse before they get better.
I mean, it was. I'm very disappointed on this constant picking around on the rules stuff. You are not bringing in new fans by playing with the rules. You're taking the old fans who've been there forever and disenfranchising us, and at some point you start to lose us. And this pitch clock crap, I mean, this is wrong. It's tinkering with what baseball is. Quit messing around. I'm sorry it doesn't draw like football, but you're still making billions. Shut up.
Yeah, and you're not going to draw like football because football's only once a week anyway. So, I mean, that's kind of hard to compete against. But, okay, bigger bases. All right, we'll see. I can get that. I mean, even the change to the universal DHs here. I was kind of against that to start, but I understand it now because especially after what we saw during the pandemic year, the 60-game season in 2020, I kind of liked that little nuance there. In fact, I kind of like the extra innings rule now too, where you get to start with a guy at second base. But pitch clock. Look, I'm going to pay probably $20 for a ticket. Okay, let's just be honest. I'm going to pay $20 for a ticket. I'm going to pay at least that for parking. I'm going to pay at least that for a hot dog and a soda or a beer, whatever you're getting there for food. I don't care if the game's going to go 3.5 hours. I can get up and go anytime I want. So if you want to put a pitch clock out there and make things, look to be a little bit quicker, I honestly am not there to try to get in and out in a certain amount of time. It's a destination for me. I don't care how long these games are lasting. So do you really need to mess with the rules as far as timing with pitchers? And I mean, that is going to be so nuanced next year. I just can't imagine how this is going to help speed up the game. I mean, the pitch comp thing hasn't helped speed up the game to me. No. I think they've had just as much issues with that, in the technology of that the game has slowed down because of it.
But that doesn't fundamentally change baseball. What they're talking about fundamentally changes baseball, and that's it's unacceptable to me. It really is.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I want to see how the fans react to it. I mean, they're trying to do these things that will, like you say, bring in a new audience. And okay, next year, every team, it's going to be a balanced schedule where every team plays every team, whether you're American League or National League. I think that's kind of interesting. That's kind of cool.
No,
it kind of takes away the specialness of the World Series. When an AL team and an NL team used to not see each other all the time. But Yeah. Anyway, we could go a whole show on this, but we're running out of time for tonight. Just a reminder, check us out on Twitter and Instagram, Clutch Time TNC. Blessings to the Anderson family. Prayers and love out to you guys. We'll see you all next week right here on Clutch Time Sports. Thanks, Tom, for filling in. We appreciate it. We'll see everybody next week.